and they have 3 active wells that are essentially serving the asphalt plant. Groundwater production by Vulcan has averaged about 667 acre-feet over the last several years, while their rights to produce groundwater are being ramped down to an average of about 346 acre-feet a year. And so Vulcan has done several things in the past to make up for this production, including paying replacement water assessments for some of the overproduction over time, and has secured transfers in recent years to supplement their production rights. And so this transfer is a continuation of that process and will be used for the 2022 production by Vulcan. The transfer is simply moving groundwater production from the central Antelope Valley sub-area, where Terra Bonita holds their rights, to the southeast sub-area as shown on Figure 1. That's on page 126 of your packet. And although there are some local water level declines in the southeast area, as indicated by some of the hydrographs that we show on page 127, the productive wells for Vulcan that would be used for this production is actually located well to the east of those declines. So this is a one-time transfer to simply allow current levels of production to continue. And as such, it's not expected to create any type of material injury as defined by the judgment. Be glad to answer any questions on the transfer from Terra Bonita to Vulcan.
So, Phyllis, this is Adam, giving that we have lower level in the static water level in the wells in the southeast, and giving that Vulcans continue to pump more than their entitlement, and most likely will continue to lease additional acre feet to cover their over pumping. Would there be a point in the future where this could be deleterious to the static water level in that area?
Well, we certainly want to watch that, and as a result of that, we actually did recommend to Vulcan in our letter of findings that that we look at a distribution of pumping in a reasonable way in the southeast area. As you may know, and I know a lot of others know this even more directly, the southeast is associated with rather complex geology and hydrogeology. And so right now we don't have water level declines in the area of concerns, but because of those sort of unknown and uncertainties associated with that area, we do want to continue to watch hydrographs in the area. So there could be ways to mitigate that going forward, but at this point we don't see any reason to indicate that the additional production, which is really just the continuation of the current levels, would cause any type of excessive declines in water levels in that area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine, and I understand that it may take time. What did Vulcan said when you told them that, at one point maybe this is going to be a problematic issue? Is there other way for them to get water from some other way, or not?
We haven't discussed any specific mitigation measures because at this point it's not exactly clear what needs to be mitigated. We just simply want to. We did have a discussion with them about using water in this recirculation pond and how much was going to the asphalt plant comparatively speaking to their other operations. And so we felt comfortable that things were being distributed well enough at this point not to cause consistent and persistent groundwater declines. But again, mostly because of the uncertainties associated in the southeast and also because we get quite a bit of recharge along Big Rock Creek where the aggregate mining occurs. We wanted to just at least be sure that we had the opportunity to suggest that pumping be distributed in a manner such that we're not causing local water level declines.
Understood. How far is the east side groundwater recharge bank from this area?
It's actually quite close. Let me think. Let me see if I can estimate that. don't. It's only a few miles. I don't have a good enough map in front of me right now, Adam, to give you that information. But it is rather close in that area.
Would at one point, and this is just to satisfy my curiosity, would purchases of imported water supplied by Vulcans and recharging to that groundwater bank as a replacement water, would that be an option for Vulcans at one point if needed, since we're switching pumping from the central basin to the southeast?
Right. I think that's a good idea. I've not looked at that specifically, and I'm a little hesitant to say yes right away, but it's certainly something that could be explored.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2234?
I move that we approve Resolution R22-34.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
I second that, Kathy.
Second by Kathy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2234 by roll call vote.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Ariki?
Yes.
Director Calandri?
Yes.
Director Urasic?
Yes.
Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item C. Phyllis?
Yes, so this is the last of the three transfers, and those three transfers are from various parties to RTS Orchards. And I think if the transfers in our meeting today have a theme, it is that as we are ramping down the production rights in the basin, we are seeing that parties are looking to transfers as options to be able to maintain ongoing production. So we're not really seeing increases in production, but we are seeing a shift in some production throughout the subbasin as people attempt to continue to meet their water demands as production is being ramped down. You might recall that ramp down ends at the end of this year, and we will be on our own with our original production rights at that point. So this transfer that we are dealing with here is the resolution is on page 140. The exhibit for this is on page 141, and our letter of funding begins on page 142. And it is a one-time transfer of 65 acre-feet of a production right to be used in 2022 from Stephen Selleck to RTS Orchards. Both of these parties are on Exhibit 4 of the judgment. Richard Selleck has a production right of 75 acre-feet a year associated with lands in the Central Valley subarea, but is not pumping groundwater directly with those rights and has been actively transferring this right to other interested parties in the Antelope Valley for several years. At the end of 2021, Stephen Selleck also had 65 acre-feet of carryover water available for this transfer. RTS Orchards has a production right of 808 acre-feet a year, which they use for irrigation on a pistachio farm that covers about 410 acres of trees, which require an average of about 3.4 acre-feet per acre of water for irrigation. Their property is located in the West Antelope subarea, so this transfer would be moving this amount of production right for 2022 from the Central subarea to the West subarea. The RTS annual production and their available ramp down amounts are shown in the letter that's again on page 142, just for your information. And you can see from those amounts that the transfer water is needed to maintain past production levels as the ramp down reduces the available production available to RTS Orchards. The overproduction of the production right and the transfer amounts for 2021 resulted in a replacement water obligation of about 117 or 118 or so acre feet. So again, the strategy of using both replacement water, which they have to pay assessments for, and recent transfers have been used as strategies for being able to maintain sufficient irrigation to meet water demands on the pistachio farm. We did the analysis of material injury. We don't think that the transfer is going to increase groundwater production at all. These levels are, the transfer is being done simply to maintain production on this property. Water levels in the proximity of the RTS orchards is continuing to be high, primarily because it's an area where there's lower amounts of local pumping as well as local banking projects. Recognizing that this is just a one-time transfer, it's being used to maintain current production in the area. And as a result of this and other details, we find that the potential for material injury as defined by the judgment is negligible. I'd be glad to answer any questions on the Selleck to RTS orchards transfer.
Directors, any questions?
No, just a comment. As long as the transfer is to the west side and from the central side, that should be, in my at least mind, should be of benefit to the entire basin in general.
Yes, I agree.
Any other questions? Hearing no further questions, is there a motion to approve R2235?
Landry, so moved.
Motion made by John, is there a second?
I second that, Kathy.
Second by Kathy, is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2235 by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to R2236. And Phyllis, can I assume your summary is about the same as the last one?
The summary is identical to the last one.
So can we dispense with the summary and just tell us what your recommendation is?
We have, in the same way that we looked at the Selleck to RTS orchards for Stephen Selleck, we also analyzed the potential for material injury for Richard Selleck to RTS orchards and determined that the potential is negligible as defined by the judgment.
Great, thank you. Any questions of Phyllis on resolution R2236? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve R2236?
Move to approve, Kathy.
Motion made by Kathy, is there a second?
Adam, second.
Second by Adam, is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve R2236 by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item E, resolution R2237. Phyllis?
Our last transfer is very similar to the previous two transfers where Gorindo Resourceful LLC is also providing a transfer to RTS Orchards. The resolution on page 173, exhibit on 174, and our letter of finding beginning on 175. This is a transfer within the west subarea, the West Antelope subarea. It is simply moving the water from Gorindo Resourceful, which only has 2 capped wells and has not produced groundwater for several years and has continued to transfer their production rights. For this one-time transfer of 629 acre-feet of production right and 64 acre-feet of carryover water, we're simply moving that production about 10 miles across the area. And so that everything that I said before about RTS orchards is the same in this one. And as a result, we have looked at material injury and determined that the potential for this to occur is negligible as defined by the judgment.
And this is
any questions?
This is permanent transfer, or is it just a 1-year deal?
It's a 1-year transfer for the current year production right, but it is all of the 64 acre-feet of carryover.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, directors? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution R2237?
Landry, so moved.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Second by Adam. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution 2237 by roll call vote.
Director Paris?
Yes.
McLaren? Director
Yes.
Reed? Director Calandri?
Yes.
Director Urasic?
Yes.
And Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 12, consideration and possible action on new production applications. And that's going to be, you're going to do 13. So we're going to do 12 right now? Okay. So Phyllis?
Thank you.
Right.
I'm going to turn these new production applications over to our hydrogeologist, who's also on the call, Arden Wells. Arden, take it away.
Hi, thank you so much. We have 4 applications this week, and all 4 of them are new production applications that are all small pumper or Willis class. I'm sorry, non-pumper Willis class ones. And all 4 of them are people requesting pumping for new homes. So the first one is Erin Lawrence. And so this is a new production application for a domestic well that will be used for her home, which is a mobile home, which will be about 2,000 square feet in area, and additional landscaping. The landscaping will include shade trees, a container garden, and also some drought-tolerant shrubs and bushes. So looking at this one, she's requesting only 1.5 acre feet per year and has agreed to pay the replacement water assessment. So given this, we determined that material injury is negligible for this application.
So this is a Wells class applicant,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, this is.
I thought there is a limit of 1 acre foot that each. I could be wrong about that. I mean, there's so many details in this judgment. I don't know if Craig, is it 1.5 or 1 acre, or there is no limit?
I don't recall, Adam, off the top of my head. I'm looking at the criteria for Willis class that is referenced in the application and don't see the limitation that you mentioned.
Okay. All right. This issue has came up before, and I may be wrong about this. Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's any limitation. They will be paying replacement water assessment for every single drop of the new production.
Understood.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2238?
This is Derek. I'll make that motion, please.
Motion made by Derek. Is there a second?
Seconded by.
Second.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that Kathy?
Yes.
Yes.
Kathy, you made it by the wire. Kathy, second the motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2238 by roll call vote.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Ricci?
Yes.
Director Calandri?
Yes.
Director Urasic?
Yes.
Director Paris?
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item B, Resolution R2239. Arden?
Application is also a Willis class application for Jorge and Ora Ortiz. And this is on page 206, and the letter is on page 208 of the packet. So they are also requesting 1.5 acre feet a year in the southeastern sub area. This will be for a home that's about 1,500 square feet and some light landscaping. This is 1.5 acre feet, and they've also agreed to pay the replacement water assessment. So given these, we also evaluated the application to have negligible material injury.
Thank you. Is there any questions to Arden? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2239?
I move that we approve resolution R22-39. Adam here.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
This is Derek. I'll second.
Motion second by Derek. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2239 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Palandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item C, Arden.
Thank you. Item C is for Victor Nava, which will be on page 234, and then the letter begins on page 236. And so Mr. Nava is also requesting 1.5 acre-feet per year, and his land is located in the central Antelope sub-area. And this will also be for a home about 1,500 square feet and about 400 square feet of landscaping. And he has also agreed with the application to have more sustainable landscaping practices and also pay a replacement water assessment for the 1.5 acre feet per year. So given that, we've evaluated this application to have negligible material injury.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to make a comment and remind everybody about the wells applications and making sure that the permit, once it's obtained from the health department, makes its way into our files.
Adam, I have requested that the well drillers provide me with all well completion reports.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angel.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question, Adam. Thank you, Angel. Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2240?
So moved, Calandri.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Adam, second.
Second by Adam. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2240 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Palandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item D, Arden.
Thank you. This is the final new production application that we have today, and it's for Augusto and Jean Alcantara. And so they're requesting 3 acre-feet per year in the central Antelope sub-area. And their request is a bit larger because they would like to have shade trees. They've got horses and goats, and would also like to grow some fruit trees for personal use. On top of this is largely for their single-family home in the area. And this is 3 acre-feet per year, and they will be paying a replacement water assessment. And so we also evaluated this to have negligible material injury.
Thank you, Arden. Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2241?
I'll motion that, Kathy.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Adam, second.
Second by Adam. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2241 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Palandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. Arden, thank you for your debut at the Watermaster meeting. You did a great job.
Thank you.
And you have a good day unless you have something else coming up. We're now on item 13, consideration possible action on small pumper qualifying documentation, and that's going to be Angel.
Thank you, Rob. We have one small pumper qualifying application on this month's agenda. Starts on page 265 of the agenda packet. It's for Michael and Tammy Galay. This property is located in the southeast sub-area. The well was drilled in September 2003 and produces less than 25 acre-feet of water per year. The well, current and historical use for the water is to supply water to a single-family home and minimal landscaping. The advisory committee and staff recommend approval of this application. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions of Angel? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution R2242?
I move that we approve resolution R2242.
I
Thank you.
second that.
Motion made by Adam, second by Kathy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution number R2242 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasi,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes. Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Angel, for the outstanding presentation.
I do have a question for Craig. I mean, obviously, for a small pumper to be qualified, they have to meet certain criteria. If at any point in the future we found out that somebody slipped through the crack and they didn't meet the criteria, can we rethink or rescind our approval?
We have the representation, Director Ariki, that the information that they have presented in the application is true and accurate, and that they will amend if anything material has changed. I guess our position would be if we learned information that indicated they were no longer in compliance, we would act on it in an enforcement method.
Okay.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you for the question, Adam. Other questions? Hearing none, that brings us to item 14, letter of appreciation, agencies involved in monitoring and taking action against water theft. And the item is consideration possible action on letter of appreciation, agencies involved monitoring and taking action against water theft. We sent you drafts of the letters to everybody. The only thing I would like to add is I did talk to the Vice Mayor of Lancaster, Marvin Christ, who has been instrumental in working on these projects to get rid of the cannabis grows within the Antelope Valley. And he did tell me that the city of Palmdale was instrumental this time and provide a lot of services from their public works and from the city. So I would like to recommend that we include the city of Palmdale on this. And Vice Mayor Chris also told me that Sheriff Villanueva was very instrumental. And although we do have a letter to the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors for funding, I think it would be appropriate for us to send a separate letter directly to the sheriff or the sheriff's department and thanking them also. Other than that, is there any other discussion regarding the letter of appreciation?
I agree with what you say, and I'm glad that you included Palmdale, because that was my understanding from talks in the sheriff boosters that Palmdale was being very active with the city and also Villanueva. So I think this is very important that we do thank them for all their support.
Thank you, Kathy. Any further discussion?
Can we recap who are we sending the letter of appreciation to, beside the county, the sheriff, city of Palmdale, who else?
And to the city of Lancaster.
And are we...
And supervisor.
Yeah, the Board of Supervisors, the Sheriff's Department, City of Lancaster, and City of Palmdale.
Any of the state and Senate and yeah, I thought they were involved as well.
I think although, well, I don't want to get involved in politics. I think these were the agencies that were most involved in getting the resources out there and making it happen. And
okay. No, that's fine. You guys know about this more than I do.
Thank you. Okay, so Peter, do you want a motion to approve the letter or?
To approve the letter and the additional letters to be signed and sent.
And on this draft letter, it's asking for all the signatures that logistically might be a little difficult to get them all in a timely manner.
Yeah, Chairman Paris, I thought this issue when it came first, I recommended that we only included your signature and then board approval.
Okay, and Adam, I thank you for that, and only just because logistically it would be a nightmare to get everybody's signature.
Yeah, I don't know, Craig, if you recall that discussion a few meeting backs of the administrative committee.
I do remember that. We talked about having it signed by Chair Paris.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little awkward having all the signatures on a separate page otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that, and we will take care of that. So is there a motion to approve the letter of appreciation to the City of Lancaster, the City of Palmdale, the Board of Supervisors, and to the Sheriff's Department, to directly Sheriff Villanueva, and it will be signed by the chair of the board? Is there a motion to do that? Go ahead, Kathy.
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, and obviously we will edit the letter to appropriately bring it up to date with how we change things. All in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 15, consideration possible action on formation of sub-area advisory management committees, and that's going to be Craig.
Yes, as you recall, Board, we've talked on a couple of occasions about the fact that the judgment at Section 19.5 foresees the establishment of sub-area advisory management committees. And there's been a very robust discussion both at the public meetings and the admin committee about that process and the expense of that forming new management sub-area committees, and the fact that the advisory committee format seems to be working satisfactorily, but we didn't want to be ignoring an explicit provision of the judgment. And so the memo on this topic is on page 276 of your board packet. And our recommendation, and I don't believe this needs a board vote, but what we would suggest is that the board direct us as general counsel to prepare an amendment to rules, section 6 of the rules and regulations, setting forth process by which the advisory committee, in connection with interested parties and the watermaster engineer, would address on a biannual basis sub-area management issues. What we would do is generate the draft of that amendment to the regulations, and then vet it with the advisory committee, and then vet it publicly initially at the July meeting, with the understanding to be brought back after amendments and input from the public to a vote at the August meeting. The benefit of that is that it would institutionalize this process of meeting the goals of Section 19.5 without burdening us with a lot more administrative apparatus, and would be an amendment to the rules and regs that would go to the court for approval in such a way that it would be clear that this is substantially complying with the intent of Section 19.5. So I don't think a motion's needed, but would appreciate input from the board about whether they want to give direction to us as general counsel to prepare that amendment, vet it with the advisory committee, bring it to the board for public discussion in July, and potential adoption in August.
Craig, this is Adam. I don't have any problem with the process that you laid out. The only question I have, to the extent that the advisory committee board does not have a representation from a particular sub area, are we adding people from that sub area, or are we assuming that the current board is going to address that sub area, even though that sub area has no representation?
Well, we haven't worked that out yet, Director Ariki, as to who would be involved in the process, but we're assuming it's advisory committee, watermaster engineer, and as the memo says, and interested parties. Those that have serious concerns or want to participate in the process developed by the amendment to the rules and regulations. So we want to put some meat on the bone of who this is intended to help. We think the advisory committee is the portal for this to start the process of discussions with the watermaster engineer on a biannual basis. But it's got to be the advisory committee, the watermaster engineer, and people who may not be on the advisory committee, but who have substantial issues or concerns that they want to express about a sub-area management issue.
Okay. And my only fear there is these meetings are going to be taking place once or twice a year, right? I mean, we talked about twice. So I don't know how easy will it be to bring people that may have concerns in these sub areas into that discussion twice a year. If they were participating in the advisory committee, then it's a lot easier to do so because they're already active.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the board and you and the staff maybe have ideas. One idea came to my mind is possibly identifying people within these sub areas now, or at least announcing to these sub areas that this is going to be happening. If you're interested in throwing your name in the hat and meeting with the advisory committee and the watermaster engineer twice a year, if there are issues of concern to the pumpers in that sub area, that would be a good, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah.
So that they at least know, instead of calling them at the end of the year and in July of every year and saying, hey, we're going to hold this meeting. If you guys have concern, come on over.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate the input. We obviously want to get input on this from the advisory committee members and the watermaster engineer in terms of the scope of the notice that we can give to make sure it's capturing the people that have the concerns. We'll make a concerted effort to do that and be as specific as we can as to what the requirements are for notification.
Thank you, Craig. Any other questions from directors? I would only add, I agree with Adam. Craig, if you could, while we're doing this, look at the ability to, if necessary, add to the advisory committee members from each of the sub areas. I don't know if that's possible, but at least look at that and see if that's something the advisory committee would be in favor of.
We shall take that to heart. Appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much.
I agree with what you guys are saying also. I think that's a good idea, and if the advisory committee says it's a good idea, we can do that.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other director's comments? Hearing none. Oh, go ahead, John.
I just said I agree.
Okay. Hey, Derek, you're the only one out there. What's your thoughts?
I agree. I think that was in reading the memo and our prior board meeting conversation, I think that was the intent. So if we need to clarify that better, I'm totally fine with that.
Great. Well, we just are having a fire alarm. We're going to take a 5-minute break so we can figure that out. And we will go mute for a minute.
Did it knock out our microphone? Probably. Oh, yeah.
Have a fire alarm issue. It has been taken care of, and we're resuming our meeting now at 11:12 a.m. So we're on item 16, retention of Watermaster Administrator. I know that I thought we had outstanding candidates, and today I thought we would have a general discussion of how we want to proceed. And I know the advisory committee had a lengthy discussion about this, and it is in the minutes, but Dan, if you're available, could you kind of outline what the advisory committee's recommendations, and I'm not sure if you put the candidates in any type of order, but if you could just quickly review with us how the discussion went.
Sure, Chair Pierce, thank you. It was a lively and lengthy discussion. The memo, I think, hit a lot of the high points, but one of the first things that we discussed was some guidelines that we thought that the board should look at as it relates to which individual or entity should be selected. And the guidelines are in my memo. I can go over them here, but I think that they, one of the biggest issues that came out during the discussion was a lack of any kind of conflict of interest. There was a lot of debate focused on that. There was a significant amount of discussion regarding the amount of experience the applicant had. We went through, I think, every single one of the applicants in terms of qualifications, experience, and which ones we thought would be the most effective at performing the tasks of the administrator, and ultimately narrowed it down to 3 potential applicants: Duke, RGS, and Hallmark. I've got them listed in the memo as the 3 that we identified. That is not in a order of preference. We were not able to reach a consensus in terms of one applicant over the other as far as those 3 are concerned. But I was pleased with our ability to come away from the meeting by at least narrowing down that list so that the board could really focus on those 3.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate those comments.
Can I just mention
we have 2 iPads working, so you might hear some feedback.
This is Craig. I just wanted to mention the process that this item on the agenda is for public input on the Watermaster Administrator. We do have the government code provides for closed session operation to discuss the appointment of an independent contractor who would function as a public employee. So the board's internal discussion should be in closed session. That's just wanted to make mention of that.
Okay, Craig. So at this point, is there any public discussion regarding the item 16, retention of a Watermaster Administrator?
Rob, this is John Yucastan.
Hi, John.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
after our meeting last Wednesday, I reviewed some of the applicants again, and I just want to make sure that you guys, when you go into closed session, don't disregard Bundy. Okay? There's very little conflict of interest in the Bundy application. I know that it's a concern that there's a one-man show, but if something does happen to him, God forbid, we have people here that are very familiar with the adjudication and what's been going on the Watermaster dealings. So my recommendation is not to disregard Bundy. Okay?
Great, John. Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing no other comment for the board, is it your desire to go into closed session for discussion when we come to the closed session part of the meeting?
Are you asking?
I am asking.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we will wait till item 21 to go into closed session on this portion of the meeting. And at this point, I'll move to item 17, Administrator's Report.
Hey, can you hear? Okay. Just one update, and that is on the landowner seat election and the two alternates. We're currently in the middle of the nomination period, and the nomination period will end July 1st at 5 p.m. Staff will send out ballots in the first week of July. Those ballots would need to be returned to Lynn Glidden by July 29th at 5 p.m. And Lynn Glidden is with the City of Palm. She is the Inspector of Elections. The results will be announced in early August. And
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Peter.
And if you have any questions on submitting a nomination or the election process, you can find all that information on the AV Watermaster website under the Elections tab. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions of Peter?
There was an echo when Peter was talking. I mean, I could hear him, but it was hard to. I don't know if it was from Peter end or it's from your end.
Unfortunately, our sound is not going to be great right now because we're working off of iPads. Hopefully we will have that resolved shortly. Were you able to understand everything Peter said, Adam?
I was, but it was a lot difficult to. But that's fine. Let's try to see how it goes.
I apologize for that. Peter, anything else?
No.
And if there's no questions of any directors, that brings us to our Watermaster Engineers Report. Phyllis?
Yes, hello. I would like to quickly share my screen with everyone. Let's do this. All righty. Can you see the screen? Someone just confirm that.
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'm going to be a little bit brief and kind of run through this rather quickly. If anyone has any comments or questions on any of this, please let me know. We'll just start quickly. I'll begin quickly with the report that we have been providing in all of our board packets on a monthly basis. This just shows a tally of new production that has been approved to date, along with qualified small pumpers. The information is shown by acre feet a year for each year it was approved, as well as by sub-area in that bottom table. This is essentially the same information that you saw on your May packet. It's been cleaned up a little bit so that we're matching the numbers exactly that we're showing in the annual report. It's on page 280 of your packet. Does anyone have any questions on this?
Are there any questions of Phyllis?
Okay, hearing none, let's go quickly into a report update of your annual report. It is on your website, and you have already been had the opportunity since early June to review this draft report. I'm going to just go over it very quickly. We will be looking at the schedule for everything and the last slide. The report is organized in the same manner that we have organized it in the past, with the 4 primary sections in the text, along with the appendices, which show all of the water counting and the details associated with all of that. We only have one new item in this 2021 annual report. That's Appendix B5. This was requested by us from some of the parties. It lists parties in Exhibits 3 and 4 and shows their multiple rights to produce groundwater. Some of those rights are included in the judgment, but some of them have been added as a result of transfer. So this just provides a little bit more transparency. It combines the information that we have in water accounting with the information that we have in the transfers. This is just a little bit of a summary of the state of the basin. You can see the production shown by the blue bars on the graph on the left from the beginning of the final judgment, starting in year 2016 through the current year for the report 2021. This is the 6th year since the final judgment and the 4th year of ramp down, which is going to end at the end of this year, end of 2022. I think you can see from the bars that we had a bit of a production decline as production was ramped down in the basin from 2016 to 2019. And actually that continued, but it doesn't look like it with respect to the blue bars because they seem to go up in 2020 and 2021. Most of that has been as a result of recovery of stored imported water. We want to always show all of the production in the basin because that's what affects the water levels and the change in groundwater and storage that we do the analysis on. But it does sort of look like that production has increased when in reality, overall production has continued to be ramped down. If you corrected those blue bars on the end in 2020 and 2021 for the recovery of stored water, you would see that the production is within the native safe yield of 82,300. And the good news is that the basin has responded to the decrease in production where water levels have either stabilized in some areas or the rates of decline have at least decreased compared to the 25-year period prior to this. So it does seem that the basin is responding even in very difficult and extreme drought conditions. Mm-hmm. We have some information in the annual report, as usual, on compliance and enforcement of the details of the judgment. We still only have about 80% of the exhibit parties 3 and 4 that have Watermaster approved meter, and the reporting there is inconsistent. We continue to make small steps to try to increase that reporting criteria that we have in the judgment. And our annual reporting is improving somewhat, but we still have some parties that are not providing us with annual reports as required by the judgment. And the tabulation is shown here on this table. We have one Exhibit 3 party not reporting, 21 Exhibit 4 parties not reporting, 2 non-stipulating parties not reporting. The good news for that is that the associated production that's estimated to be with those parties is relatively small, probably less than about 2% of the total production in the subbasin. So as a result of that, we probably aren't missing too much annual production, but we do continue to strive to get full compliance with annual reporting. Some of this is associated with the state of California and the U.S. feds, which is just a slower process, and there's very little that the Watermaster engineer and administrative staff can do to sort of rush up that process. It sort of has a mind of its own there. So that's part of the reason that we have a little bit slower production and non-production from some parties. Illegal pumping in the subbasin continues to be an issue, and Watermaster staff and legal counsel are continuing their efforts to identify illegal pumping and to enforce the judgment. So continued compliance and enforcement ongoing and documented in your annual report. We have maps very similar to what we've had in previous years. We try to improve on them every year, take the opportunity to provide just a little bit more information. We have shown this bubble map previously. This shows the locations and amounts of production in the basin. So you can see that most of the basin production occurs in the southeastern portion of the central Antelope Valley subarea, with other areas of local production shown there by the bubbles. And you can see by the legend the amounts associated with that production. We are tabulating some of this information. We're going to have a little bit more detail in the next version of this annual report. We also continue to monitor the small pumpers. We have now improved locations thanks to work by administrative staff. We've approved locations of the small pumper parcels that are shown here. There's about 2,378 of them, and 87 or so of those are were unknown pumpers that have now been qualified as small pumpers. We have also administrative assessments paid by about 937 of those parties to the tune of $23,053. We did this in a 5-year increment just because the administrative assessments on 1 or 2 acre-feet a year are so small. The mapping that we have done of these parcels and the continual improvement steps that we've made to improve our knowledge of where they are and what's going on with them continues, and will need to sort of be continued with respect to comparing now where these parcels are with current land use and other information. The approved new production is tabulated in the annual report and can be found on one of the figures that's shown here as figure 21. It shows the locations of the new 480 acre-feet a year production that has been approved in this basin. It's about less than 1% of the native safe yield, and of course is associated with replacement water assessments for everything that is pumped. These new production applications have averaged about 7 acre-feet a year. That 7 is actually a little bit high and is skewed a bit by the most recent application from Mettler Mutual Water Company, which was about 100 acre-feet a year, much higher than most of the new productions. The median amount of the new production applications is about 1.3 acre-feet a year, which is more along the lines of what we would expect. We continue to update our hydrographs and pull in the information from the USGS and other data from the wells and water level measurements in the basin. We do an ongoing tracking of trends and fluctuations. We update more than 100 hydrographs and then select local representative hydrographs to show on this figure in the annual report. And we also use these hydrographs, as you know, for all of our material injury analysis going forward. Our hydrographs right now show a 26-year period from 1997 to 2022, so we can see what was happening before final judgment as well as the most recent trends and fluctuations associated with the water levels in the basin. We also we can see these rising trends in banking areas and flattening of some of our declining trends, which I think is a good step. We look at these water levels. We map these water levels on an annual basis and then do an electronic subtraction of those two water level contour maps to come up with a change in groundwater volume throughout the entire basin for each year. We have had drought-related water level declines in the basin for for the calendar year 2021, especially in the banking areas, and where we've had only small amounts of water available for recharge, and we've done quite a bit of pumping in those areas to recover our stored water. This is completely appropriate, and the way that you do conjunctive use in a basin, you use surface water when you need it and when you have it, and bank it when there is excess so that you can rely on the groundwater basin during times of drought. So that's working well, I think, in this basin, and we're lucky to have a supply of imported water. The change in groundwater volumes are tabulated by sub-area and shown in the annual reports each year. You can see that we have the sub-area tabulations on this table, and if you look in the lower right, you can see that there's been a decline of groundwater and storage of about 130,000 acre feet for 2021. This number goes up and down. This reflects the decreased precipitation, probably in the upper watersheds more than anything else in the calendar years of 2020 and 2021. We compare this information going forward and backwards through time. You can see here the years since the final judgment from 2016 to the present. And because, again, of our extreme drought conditions that we've had throughout many of these years, we do have a slight decrease, cumulatively speaking, overall in the subbasin. We also look at, yes.
So obviously we were in a ramp down during this period, and one would anticipate there were more pumping than would have been otherwise when we start 2023, right?
Yes.
Was there any projection done once the ramp down is over? In other words, if those 5 years were we were only pumping the native yield plus return flows, what would have been that minus 61,000? Would have been lower, obviously, but would it be zero or positive?
We did not do that calculation, and I'm not 100% sure exactly what assumptions would go into that process. Certainly much of the decline that we have seen locally within the subbasin has been the decline of water that we actually put into the subbasin. So in some ways, the banking and stored water complicates this a little bit to try to use these numbers in the same manner that you're thinking. But we didn't try to come up with a variety of scenarios of sort of what if. But we can sort of continue to look at that going forward. I mean, ramp down is ending now, so we will not have to guess anymore. We will begin to see exactly how the basin responds going forward.
And also, I think it would be beneficial, and maybe the model will help us do that once it's done, to segregate natural recharge from banking. Is the basin behaving when there is no groundwater banking?
Yes, thank you for saying that. That's something that we've been striving to do for quite a while now, and we're so pleased that the board has approved the model, because that's really our best opportunity to be able to characterize natural recharge. You know, we do tabulate the flows into the basin, but it's so difficult to come up with an exact number for natural recharge just on an analytical basis. So the model will be extremely helpful in allowing us, for the first time really since we've been involved in the project, to differentiate between recharge and to make estimates of recharge along the various creeks. We have a lot of that was done during the adjudication associated with the expert reports, and we've been relying on that information going forward, but we want to be able to have the opportunity to look at changing conditions to see if anything is changing with respect to where natural recharge is occurring in the subbasin.
What is your target date for the model?
We're putting updates into it right now, and so we anticipate having, as you might recall, we have a phased approach with respect to how we're bringing the model online, and we wanted it for cumulative material injury because we've had a lot of parties ask about that, so we're kind of moving in that direction first. But we will have a working model by the end of this year, and we will begin to put on top of it the USGS basin characterization module that will allow us to better estimate natural recharge for all of the creeks going forward. So we should have some information by the next annual report.
Thank you, Phyllis. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward to subsidence. This is something that we are monitoring now because of the Department of Water Resources contract with Trey Altamira and others to process remote sensing data. So this is interferon synthetic information that is processed from satellite imagery and is used statewide by the Department of Water Resources for tabulating and analyzing vertical displacement that could be associated with inelastic land subsidence. And so we are pulling that information into the annual report on a sort of tracking and screening basis. What you see here are the green colors, which means no vertical displacement, essentially no land subsidence indicated in most of those areas. You can see that we have some clay deposits associated in the central and northern portion of the central Antelope Valley sub-area where historical subsidence has occurred, and it looks as if those there are some subsidence continuing in those areas. This is not unexpected. Once clays compact, it's a very slow process, and it will continue even if pumping in the area goes down. And so we will continue to monitor it. None of the rates of vertical displacement are a cause of concern at this time. They are either the same or less than rates that we have seen in the past, up to about 1.2 inches shown there by the yellow, and up to about 2 inches shown in a small area indicated by orange. Again, similar areas and similar rates to what we have seen before.
Just to clarify, these are cumulative subsidence. Yes. And then also, as you indicated, this have occurred over a very long period of time. To the extent that you can elaborate on, say, the last 10 years, have there been any additional subsidence, or we have arrested subsidence at the level that it's been? I mean, considering that there is a continuous compression of the clay layers.
So we don't know if anything has been triggered that would exacerbate future subsidence, but it doesn't appear to be the case because we have not increased rates. So the information that you see here is cumulative from 2015 to 2021. So this is since the final judgment, and it's the only data, frankly, that we have, to be honest. The INSAR data is relatively new, and even though JPL has portions of it, and also the ITRC group in San Luis Obispo also does some of this remote sensing processing in other areas for a variety of reasons. This is really the only information that we have with respect to vertical displacement and land subsidence for now in the Antelope Basin. But we hope that DWR will continue. It's our understanding that they anticipate continuing their contracts to get INSAR data processed on an annual basis. So this will provide us a good track.
Did you check with the USGS? To my knowledge, the USGS has data goes back all the way to 1993, 1992.
Yes, and we have included the historical information from USGS in the annual reports, but this is the new information that we have, and we wanted to just show that during this presentation.
So how does the subsidence from the USGS data from back in the 90s and the 2015 through 2021, how do they look? Are they the same?
The areas are almost identical.
Okay, and the level of subsidence is identical?
I don't have a strong recall of exactly what the rates were. I know that I have looked at it before, and I looked at it when we pulled this data in, and rates have not increased. But I can't tell you exactly what the historical rates are.
We want to feel good that we're doing good by the basin. That's all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It would be nice, if that data, at one point when you do have a chance, you can show us, from 1993 till 2015, and from 2015, we want to feel good. The last 6 years has been good for the basin.
Absolutely, and we do have some of that information in the annual report. I just didn't pull it into this presentation.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so we're almost done here. We do have some revisions that we're making and edits in progress on the draft annual report, and this is just a summary of some of the things that we are doing. Most of them are corrections to appendices, things that we are either appending. We only got comments from one party who suggested that we are a little bit clearer with respect to our Appendix B tables that show available transfer water. So we did make that change. Appreciate that comment from Vulcan. And then there are other minor text and table edits that we are making just to make sure that the report is clear and concise as much as we can make it. So there will be a new version coming of the annual report. We're going to post that revised draft by July the 8th. We ask that if you have any final comments, we're going to post a red line of that as well as a complete version so that you'll see some of the text edits and corrections that we've made. And we ask that you provide us with any final comments that you might have by July the 20th. Our public hearing will be at our next board meeting on July 27th, where we will be glad to take public comments and any additional comments that people may have on the draft report. We need to finalize that rather quickly after the public hearing because we need to post the final 2021 annual report by July 29th, and Craig and staff are already in place to get that to the court by its submission date of August 1st. We also will be pulling the final numbers from the annual report to develop the Sigma reporting process that we do every year online, and we'll be providing you with that table as well so that you can see what we're planning to report online to the Department of Water Resources in compliance with Sigma. So that's it for me. Appreciate you hanging in there for this long time period.
Phyllis,
Yes.
the last question, it's an easy one. So we've been doing
good.
this report now, what, 4 or 5 years?
6.
6 years.
17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 5, yes.
5 years, okay.
Yes.
So we've, many times we've brought this issue of efficiency and trying to leverage data that we have from the past and making sure that the cost of this report goes down further and further as we go further. So has that been the case, or we're dreaming?
No, you're not dreaming. I'm pleased to report that we have decreased our cost to present the annual report. I have to tell you that I am constantly sort of trying to balance your desire to do that, which I fully understand and support, and my desire to make it better every year with more information that seems to be really getting to the heart of the matter. We're just every year digging a little bit further.
Understood. Being equal, a little bit more efficient today than we were 5 years ago.
There's no question about that.
Phyllis, outstanding report, and we're back live at the AVAC meeting. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question of Phyllis? I noticed we still have non-reporting or reporting problems with a substantial, at least an important percentage of the Exhibit 4 parties. Is there any thought about making that information more known to the board as to what the nature of the problem is, who it is, and what the reporting problem is with those 21 parties on Exhibit 4?
We've certainly noted that in the past. We thought that shaming might help. I know that administrative staff continues to persist, I'll say, in trying to get that information. But we could absolutely work with staff to provide some of the details of that in the public hearing if the board would like to hear that.
Yeah, it just seems to me an important percentage of Exhibit 4 are not reporting accurately or at all.
Yes, and I am disappointed by that, and at my wit's end trying to figure out exactly how to make that happen. Yeah. The only solace that I take from the whole process is when we add up who that is and what their rights are associated with each one of those parties. It can't be a substantial amount. We're only looking at very small percentages of rights that are not reporting. So
right.
We still want full compliance, don't get me wrong, but at least it isn't the larger pumpers.
And we have the rules and regs support that if any of those parties ask the watermaster for transfers or whatever it may be, that we can seek compliance first before we
Yes.
provide services. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Outstanding. And Craig, thanks for the questions. Anything else before we move on? Okay, now we're on General Counsel's report, Craig.
Yes, that's going to be saved for closed session. The only other issue that's not on closed session, the board authorized us to proceed with enforcement actions as to 2 entities. And once we get a hearing date on those, they'll be updated on closed session, but that's Rancho Sierra and Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District. We will be moving forward on that. But the rest is for closed session.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions of Craig on General Counsel report? Hearing none, we'll move on to board members' requests for future agenda items. Any requests for future agenda items? Hearing none, we will move into closed session. Is there a motion for us to go into closed session?
This is Adam. I move that we go into a closed session.
Motion made by Adam. Is there a second?
John, second.
Second by John. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to go into closed session by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We will now move into closed session, and I will ask any of the public here to vacate the boardroom, and we will proceed with closed session in just a few minutes.